I'm Kale, and I spent a decade proving my worth to people who saw me as a bank account with a heartbeat. I cleared their debts, fixed their house, paid bills they pretended didn't exist. The more I gave, the less they respected me. They called my career shaky. My generosity became arrogance. So when they humiliated me in public, I gave them exactly what they asked for, nothing. What I didn't expect was discovering they'd been stealing my identity for years, using my name to borrow money, boost their reputation, and live off a success story they claimed to have built. When the truth finally surfaced, it wasn't revenge that destroyed them. It was silence, and the law. Welcome to Revenge with Precious, where we share real stories of betrayal, resilience, and the courage to stand up for yourself. These are tales of people who refused to stay silent, who drew boundaries when love turned toxic, and who chose their peace over family obligation. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, these stories are for you. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that might change how you see your own life. Please, watch till the end. Let's get started.
The restaurant smelled like roasted garlic and expensive wine. Soft jazz played somewhere in the background, barely audible over the murmur of polite conversation. I sat across from my parents, hands folded on the white tablecloth, waiting for the right moment to tell them about the retirement property I'd just bought in their name. My father finished his steak, wiped his mouth with precision, and leaned back in his chair. That's when his expression shifted, not angry, just dismissive. "Kale," he said, voice calm and cutting. "We don't need your money." My mother set down her wine glass, lips pursed into something resembling a smile. "Honestly," she added, "you should focus on yourself. You've done enough pretending." The waiter approached with the check, hesitated, then placed it carefully between us. My hand moved instinctively toward my wallet, but something inside me stopped. I looked at them both, really looked, and saw nothing but contempt dressed up as concern. I slid my card onto the tray anyway, signed my name with a steady hand, and stood. "You're right," I said quietly. "I don't need to do this anymore. My name is Kale Monroe, and I learned early that love in my family had conditions. It wasn't given freely. It was earned through obedience, sacrifice, and silence. My parents didn't ask how I was feeling. They asked how much I was making. Success wasn't something to celebrate together. It was something they measured to see if I'd finally become useful. I was 23 when I got my first real paycheck, working as a junior analyst at a tech consultancy firm. I didn't go out that night. I didn't buy anything for myself. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into my parents' utility account, and cleared the overdue balance, $473. When I told my mother the next day, she barely looked up from her coffee. "Well," she said flatly, "that's what children are supposed to do." No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just expectation. That moment should have been a warning. But I was young, eager to prove I wasn't the disappointment they'd always implied I was. So I kept giving, kept trying, kept hoping that one day, the math would add up to love. I worked 3 jobs through college, morning shifts at a campus bookstore, afternoon tutoring sessions, and weekend freelance gigs building websites for small businesses. My parents called it obsessive. "You're going to burn out," my father said once, though he never offered to help with tuition. When I graduated with honors, they attended the ceremony but left early. My mother said the traffic would be bad. My father said he had an early meeting. I stood alone in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, watching other families take photos and cry happy tears. That night, I went home to an empty apartment and ate ramen by myself. 2 weeks later, I landed my first major freelance client, a startup that needed a full rebrand. The pay was modest but significant to me. I used half of it to cover my parents' overdue car insurance and property taxes. When I told my mother, she nodded absently. "It's good you're finally contributing," she said. Contributing. As if everything I'd done before didn't count. As if my existence had been a debt I was only now beginning to repay. Every achievement I celebrated alone. My first promotion, they said I was getting ahead of myself. My first apartment, a small studio in the city, they called it wasteful and reminded me I could have stayed home for free. When I tried to share my excitement about a new client or a successful project, my father would interrupt with a story about his own career, back when work ethic actually mattered. My mother would smile tightly and say, "We're proud, of course. But don't forget where you came from." Where I came from. As if I could. As if they'd let me. They framed my success as their creation, their investment finally paying dividends. At family gatherings, my mother introduced me with phrases like, "This is Kale. We worked so hard to get him here." Not he worked hard. We. I started to notice how often they took credit for things they hadn't done, how they rewrote history to make themselves the architects of my life. And I said nothing, because confronting them felt like disrespect, and disrespect felt like betrayal. When my father called asking for help with the car loan, I didn't hesitate. He explained they'd fallen behind, just temporarily, just until his next bonus came through. I transferred the money that afternoon, $600. 2 months later, my mother texted. Could I cover their credit card minimum? Just this once. The balance was climbing, she said, because of unexpected medical expenses. I sent $1,000. Then came the insurance gap, the roof repair, the refrigerator that died suddenly, the cousin's wedding gift they couldn't afford. Each request arrived with the same phrasing. Just this once. We'll pay you back. Family helps family. I never said no, because saying no meant proving I was selfish, ungrateful, exactly what they'd always feared I'd become. So I became their safety net, their silent benefactor, the child who existed to catch them every time they stumbled. And they stumbled often. Looking back, I wonder if they stumbled on purpose. Eventually, I stopped waiting for them to ask. I set up automatic monthly transfers, $800, sent on the first of every month, directly into their joint account. It was easier that way. No awkward phone calls. No guilt-laden explanations. Just money, appearing like clockwork, proof that I cared even when we didn't speak. I told myself it was an investment in peace. If I gave enough, maybe they'd stop resenting me. Maybe they'd finally see me as someone valuable, someone worth loving without conditions. But peace never lasted in that house. My mother still called with complaints. The transfer was late. It wasn't. The amount wasn't enough. It was more than generous. I should be doing more. I was doing everything. My father rarely acknowledged the payments at all. Once, I asked if the money was helping. He shrugged. It's something, he said. Not thank you. Not appreciation. Just something. I should have stopped then. But hope is a stubborn, stupid thing. At family dinners, my mother began weaving me into her stories, not as a son, but as evidence. Kale's doing so well now, she'd tell relatives, her voice dripping with false modesty. Of course, we taught him everything. Discipline, work ethic, humility. She'd smile at me across the table, eyes daring me to contradict her. I never did. My father would nod along, adding, he wouldn't be where he is without the foundation we gave him. Foundation. As if they'd laid bricks instead of obstacles. As if their neglect had somehow been a lesson in resilience. I smiled through it, plate untouched, hands gripping my fork too tightly. I told myself it didn't matter. That their need to claim ownership over my success was harmless. That I was being too sensitive. But every compliment they gave me in public was a lie that made me smaller. And I let them do it, over and over, because standing up felt impossible. I tried once to do something generous on my terms. I booked a weekend vacation, nothing extravagant, just a quiet cabin upstate with good hiking trails and a lake view. I thought maybe, away from their house and routines, we could actually talk. Maybe they'd soften. Maybe I'd finally feel like their son instead of their accountant. The first night, my mother complained about the mattress. The second morning, my father criticized the coffee. By noon, they were arguing about the lack of nearby restaurants, the poor cell service, the inconvenience of it all. This is too much, my mother said, arms crossed. You're just showing off. My father agreed. Money's made you flashy, Kale. That's the problem. I canceled the rest of the trip that afternoon, drove them home in silence, and didn't speak to them for 3 weeks. When my father finally called, he didn't apologize. He just said, see, this is what happens when people get a little success. They forget how to be humble. Months passed in uneasy silence. Then my mother called, her voice unusually warm. We miss you, she said. Let's have dinner. Just the 3 of us. Like old times. I hesitated, but the loneliness got to me. I wanted to believe things could change. So I agreed. I chose the restaurant carefully, a place with good reviews, quiet enough for real conversation. I even prepared what I'd say, that I'd bought them a small property, a retirement plan, fully paid. That I wanted them to have security. That despite everything, I still cared. I dressed in my best suit, arrived early, ordered their favorite wine. When they walked in, My mother kissed my cheek. My father shook my hand. For a moment, it felt normal. Then the appetizers arrived, and my father's expression shifted. He set down his fork, looked at me with something cold and final, and said the words that would change everything. "We don't need your money, Kale." After that night, I stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped offering. At first, they didn't seem to notice. A week passed, then two. I waited for guilt to overwhelm me, for the old reflexes to kick in, the urge to fix things, to apologize for boundaries I hadn't even set yet. But the guilt never came. Instead, I felt something unexpected: relief. My apartment was quieter. My bank account stopped draining. I started sleeping through the night without waking up anxious, wondering what bill I'd forgotten, what emergency they'd call about next. Then the messages started. "Haven't heard from you. Everything okay? Did we say something wrong? Call when you get a chance." I read each one, then put my phone down. Silence was harder than sending money. It required a kind of strength I didn't know I had. But it also felt cleaner. Honest. For the first time, I wasn't performing love. I was protecting myself from people who'd mistaken me for a resource. 3 weeks later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mr. Monroe," a woman's voice said, professional and clipped. "This is Allied Collections Agency. We're calling regarding overdue payments on accounts linked to your Social Security number." My stomach dropped. "I don't have any overdue accounts," I said carefully. "According to our records, you do? 2 credit cards and a personal loan, all opened within the last 4 years. Total balance, $32,000. I sat down slowly. "I didn't open those accounts." There was a pause. "Sir, the paperwork has your signature. The addresses listed are in Pennsylvania. Do you have family there?" "My parents' address." My signature. I thanked her, hung up, and opened my laptop with shaking hands. Within an hour, I'd pulled my credit report. For accounts I didn't recognize. All opened using my name, my Social Security number, my mother's address as the billing location. My chest felt tight. My vision blurred. I'd been funding their life while they'd been stealing mine. I drove to their house the next morning, documents printed and highlighted. My father answered the door in a bathrobe, surprised. "Kale, we didn't know you were coming. We need to talk," I said, stepping inside without invitation. My mother appeared from the kitchen, dish towel in hand, smiling as if nothing was wrong. I spread the papers across their dining table, credit card statements, loan documents, my Social Security number circled in red. "Explain this," I said quietly. My father glanced at the pages, then at me. "Oh, that. We needed help. You weren't answering, so you stole my identity." "Don't be dramatic," my mother interrupted. "It's family money. You wouldn't have credit if it wasn't for us. We built your foundation, remember?" I stared at her. "You committed fraud." "We did what we had to do," my father said, voice rising. "You think you're so independent now? You owe us." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just gathered the papers, folded them carefully, and walked toward the door. "You won't use my name again," I said. And I left. They retaliated the way people do when they lose control, quietly, through whispers and half-truths. Within days, I started hearing from relatives. "Your parents are worried about you. They say you've changed." Success really does go to people's heads, doesn't it? Old friends stopped texting. Invitations to family events disappeared. My mother crafted a narrative. I'd become arrogant, cold, ungrateful. That I'd abandoned the people who sacrificed everything for me. She played the victim beautifully, tears on cue, voice trembling whenever someone asked about me. My father told neighbors I'd cut them off over nothing, that they'd only ever tried to help. No one called to hear my side. No one asked what really happened. They just believed the version that made sense to them. The successful son who forgot where he came from. I could have defended myself. I could have told everyone the truth. But I didn't. Because I was busy building something better than a defense. I was building proof. A client reached out 3 months later, someone I'd worked with years ago. "Hey, Kale, ran into your parents at a community fundraiser last weekend. They said they're partners in your company now." I read the message twice. Partners? My company. I called him. What exactly did they say? That they helped you get started. That you couldn't have done it without their guidance and financial backing. Your mom even had business cards. Business cards. With my company's name. My logo. I thanked him, hung up, and sat in silence, hands shaking. They weren't just stealing money. They were stealing my story, my reputation, the one thing I'd built entirely on my own. And they were using it to elevate themselves in a community that still saw me as the ungrateful son. That night, I started documenting everything. Every payment I'd ever made. Every transfer, every receipt, every loan I'd cleared. Every message, every voicemail, every piece of correspondence. I wasn't planning revenge. I was preparing for the truth to speak louder than their lies. I opened a folder on my laptop labeled Records and began organizing years of financial history. Bank statements showing automatic transfers. Receipts for home repairs I'd funded. Text messages requesting money, promising repayment that never came. I pulled my credit report again, this time with annotations, dates the accounts were opened, amounts borrowed, every missed payment that damaged my score while I'd been sending them hundreds every month. I contacted a lawyer, a woman named Sienna Calloway who specialized in identity theft and family fraud. She reviewed the documents without expression, then looked up. "This is extensive," she said. "They've been doing this for years. What can I do?" "You can file a police report. Freeze your credit. Dispute the accounts. If you pursue charges, this will likely escalate." I hesitated. "And if I don't? Then they keep your name attached to their debt. Your credit stays damaged. And they'll probably do it again." I signed the paperwork that afternoon. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. Because protecting yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival. 2 months later, a letter arrived from the IRS. Thick envelope, official seal, the kind of mail that makes your stomach twist before you even open it. Notice of discrepancy in reported income. They'd flagged irregularities. Income reported under my social security number that didn't match my tax filings. Accounts I'd never disclosed because I'd never opened them. I called Sienna immediately. "This is normal," she said, her voice steady. "The IRS cross-references data. They found the accounts your parents opened. You're not in trouble, you're the victim. But you'll need to cooperate fully." I submitted everything. Every document I'd saved, every record I'd kept. Dates, amounts, addresses. I included the lawyer's affidavit, the credit report annotations, even the messages where my parents had admitted to helping themselves to my information. The IRS agent assigned to my case called 2 weeks later. "Mr. Monroe, we'll need to audit the accounts in question. This may take time. Stay available." I said I would. And then I waited. The audit uncovered 4 hidden accounts, all linked to my name, but tied to my parents' home address. Credit cards with balances in the thousands. A personal loan taken out 2 years ago, never repaid. A line of credit opened under my social security number, used to renovate their kitchen. My lawyer called with updates weekly. "They're trying to claim you gave permission," Sienna said. "That you verbally authorized them to use your information for family expenses." I didn't. I know. And the evidence proves it. But they're going to fight this. Of course they were. Because admitting the truth meant admitting they'd committed a crime. And my parents had spent their entire lives believing the rules didn't apply to them, not when it came to me. I told Sienna to proceed. To cooperate fully. To let the investigation run its course. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I wanted my name back. They found out a week later. My father showed up at my apartment unannounced, pounding on the door so hard I thought something had broken. I opened it cautiously. He stood there, red-faced, shaking. "You're ruining us," he said, voice raw. "Do you understand that? You're destroying your own family." I stepped back, arms crossed. "I didn't destroy anything. You did. We needed help. You weren't there. I was there for years. And you repaid me by stealing my identity." "It's not stealing if it's family," he shouted. "Family means forgiveness, Kale. Family means loyalty." I looked at him, really looked, and saw a man who'd never once apologized, never once taken responsibility, never once treated me like anything more than a means to an end. "Family also means respect," I said quietly. "And you never gave me that." I closed the door before he could respond. Through the wood, I heard him curse, then his footsteps retreating down the hall. It was the last time I'd see him standing. The audit led to frozen accounts. Collections agencies stopped calling me. They started calling my parents. My mother left voicemails, her voice high and frantic. "People are asking questions. They're talking about us. You have to fix this." Not "I'm sorry." Not "we were wrong." Just "fix this." I didn't call back. Instead, I sent a single email, carefully worded by Sienna. "I am cooperating with an IRS investigation into accounts opened fraudulently under my name. I will not interfere with this process. I suggest you seek legal counsel. My mother replied within minutes. You're choosing strangers over your own blood. We gave you everything. I didn't respond, because I'd already given them everything, and it still hadn't been enough. Relatives started whispering. Friends of the family grew distant. My parents had built their reputation on being generous, selfless, the kind of people who raised their son right. Now that image was cracking. People started asking questions. Why was the IRS involved? Why were there legal notices being delivered to their house? Why had Kale, the successful, grateful son, stopped coming around? My mother tried damage control, hosting dinners, attending church events, smiling through gritted teeth. But rumors spread faster than explanations. Their local standing, the respect they'd cultivated for decades, began to erode. One of their neighbors told me later, "Your mom used to brag about you every chance she got. Now she won't even say your name." Good, I thought. Let them feel what it's like to be erased. My father tried to rebuild their reputation. He told people it was a misunderstanding, that the IRS had made a mistake, that I was confused and vengeful. But when the official notices arrived, public records of the investigation, no one believed him anymore. Court filings don't lie. My parents' home, the one I'd helped them refinance years ago, was seized as part of the debt recovery process. They were forced to sell, to downsize, to face the consequences of debts they'd hidden behind my name for years. My mother called me once during this time. Her voice was flat, exhausted. "Are you happy now?" she asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I'm free." She hung up. That was the last time we spoke. I didn't defend myself publicly. I didn't post on social media. I didn't explain to relatives what had happened. I let the truth do the work. Court filings revealed the misuse of my identity. Fraud charges followed, reduced eventually to financial misconduct due to their age and cooperation. They were ordered to repay what they'd taken, not to me, but to the creditors. My name was cleared completely. My credit score began to recover. The IRS closed my case with a formal letter of exoneration. And my parents were left with the one thing they'd tried so hard to avoid: accountability. Sienna sent me the final documents, everything stamped and sealed. "You did the right thing," she said. "I know it doesn't feel like it, but you protected yourself." I nodded, because she was right. It didn't feel triumphant. It just felt necessary. When the judge read the final ruling, I wasn't in the courtroom. I didn't want to see their faces. I heard later from a distant cousin that my father sat motionless, hands folded, staring at the floor. That my mother wept, not the calculated tears she used to manipulate, but real ones, born of consequences she'd never thought would come. I felt something close to grief when I heard that. Not for them. For the relationship that could have existed if they'd ever seen me as more than a transaction. For the parents I'd wanted them to be. For the son I'd tried so hard to become. But grief and relief can coexist. And I felt both. A year passed. I heard through mutual acquaintances that my parents had moved 2 towns over, into a small rental. They'd downsized their lives, traded their spacious home for something modest, something they could actually afford without my name attached to their credit. They never reached out. Not to apologize. Not to explain. Not even to acknowledge what had happened. And I never reached out either. Because sometimes silence is its own form of closure. It's the absence of noise, the end of obligation, the space where healing happens quietly. I thought about them sometimes, wondered if they ever regretted it, if they ever understood what they'd done. But I didn't dwell, because my life had finally become mine. One evening, I found myself walking past the restaurant where it all began. The same warm lighting, the same soft music drifting through the open door. I stood outside for a moment, hands in my pockets, watching people laugh over dinner. Then I went inside. I sat at a different table, ordered a meal for one, and paid with my own card. No one to impress. No one to prove anything to. Just me, eating slowly, tasting every bite. When the waiter brought the check, I signed it without hesitation. My company had just expanded to 3 new markets. My credit was spotless. My apartment was quiet, filled with things I'd chosen, paid for, earned. As I stood to leave, I caught my reflection in the window. Older now, steadier, free. I whispered to the glass, "You were right. You don't need my money." And this time I smiled. Because neither did I.
Thank you for watching this story. If moments like these resonate with you, if you've ever had to choose yourself over people who couldn't see you, then you're not alone. We share stories like this every single day, real accounts of people who found their voice, set their boundaries, and walked into the life they deserved. Subscribe so you never miss the next upload, and share your own story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. I love you all.